CARICOM leaders end a two-day discussion on the way forward for the Caribbean single market and economy. That's our top story in Caribbean Newsline for Tuesday, December 4. From the CMC News Center in Bridgetown, I'm Nicole Best. Good evening and thanks for joining us. The two-day meeting was held in Trinidad and Tobago where leaders discussed ways of improving the CARICOM single market and economy, the CSME, that was intended to deepen the regional integration movement. CMC's Peter Richards is at the summit and now joins us live from Port of Spain. Good evening, Peter. Just give us an update on what took place at the summit over the last 2 days.
Good evening to you, Nicole, and good evening to viewers. As you rightfully pointed out, the summit hasn't ended as yet. As a matter of fact, it was supposed to have been at 5 o'clock Trinidad and Tobago time, a press conference to indicate what has been agreed upon by the regional leaders who met here over the past 2 days. The meeting is still in progress. The press conference has not yet started. But from my sources, I understand that at least they are going to sign at least 4 documents. One of the documents will include the CARIFESTA host agreement. As you know, CARIFESTA will be held in Trinidad and Tobago this time around. There will also be the signing of the multilateral air services agreement. Then there's the declaration on the provisional application of the protocol on contingent rights and the arrest warrant. The arrest warrant deals with, which was something that was discussed and agreed upon since in Guyana, at the Guyana summit, where, for example, if you do or commit a crime in one Caribbean country and you believe you could run across to another Caribbean country, then there's this provision that will allow for your extradition without going through all the legal ramifications and what have you.
So any indication yet as to how soon this meeting is going to end and what else can we expect coming out of it?
Well, as I pointed out earlier on, the summit is still in this. The leaders are still in caucus, putting the final touches onto what probably will be the communique, as well as, from what I understand, they have already drawn out a timetable for 2019. What are the measures they want implemented regarding the CARICOM single market and economy? As you're aware, the CSME allows for the free movement of goods, skills, labor, and services across the majority of the 15-member CARICOM grouping. They have also set out a timetable for 2019, 2020, and 2021, and they have also agreed that the CARICOM, the Prime Minister's subcommittee on the CSME, will review these hallmarks that they have set going forward. Well, what was also interesting at today's session, we had Dominica's Prime Minister, Roosevelt Skerritt, indicating that there's a need to revisit the decision-making progress within CARICOM. In fact, he was saying CARICOM needs to make a proper assessment of the decisions which we take before we move into the implementation stage. And I guess he was referring to the backlog. He says the decisions are piling up at the CARICOM Secretariat, and yet we, the Caribbean leaders, because it certainly wasn't the Caribbean people, but the Caribbean leaders are blaming the CARICOM Secretariat for not implementing them. And then we wish to say why they're not doing so. He said even when decisions are taken, some of the Caribbean countries seek exemptions and deregulations and what have you. So the decisions are left in limbo.
Peter Richards, thank you very much. Jamaica's Prime Minister Andrew Holness says his country has no plans to leave CARICOM. On the final day of the special summit, Holness reiterated that the decision to establish a commission to review the island's relationship with CARICOM was not intended to create an avenue for it to leave the 15-member regional integration movement. Addressing the second and final day of the two-day CARICOM summit on the CSME, Holness said that it was imperative that the commission, under the chairmanship of former Prime Minister Bruce Goldin, was established to give his then-new administration empirical evidence of its relationship with CARICOM and CARIFORUM. He says his government was facing growing political issues and had to respond. The Jamaican leader added that the intention is to provide Jamaica with primary data and positions that the island can bring to the body. The Prime Minister says there were considerations from the private sector who made a point at every engagement to bring the attention of the government to the difficulties they were having in accessing the markets of the region. And he says their concerns about unfair practices and energy was used as the case in point.
The private sector is very eager to see a CARICOM that is predictable, that is transparent, one that is forward-leading to business, and one in which you can have free movement of capital, labor, and goods. The governments are coming to the understanding, I believe, right across the region, that the private sector is really the engine of growth, and that governments exist to facilitate the private sector. The labor unions were represented as well, and they took a very enlightened view that there needs to be a social consensus, obviously, as to how, in this model of development where the private sector plays such an integral role, how do you protect the rights of workers and ensure that workers get a fair share. So I believe that around the table, having the private sector, having the unions, sitting with the politicians and the political leaders is such a very good thing for building social consensus and ensuring that policy is not made in a vacuum, but policy is practical and beneficial to the people.
Trinidad and Tobago's Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley Monday urged regional leaders to put aside their differences and ensure there's a definitive decision on the future of the CSME. Rowley, who since coming to office in 2015 has made the revitalization of the CSME a priority, says he was hopeful at the end of the two-day special summit that decisions would be taken to make steps forward. He tells CMC News that he is hoping on behalf of the people of Trinidad and Tobago and the people of the region that the meeting will result in the leaders taking firm positions on what they are going to do with the CARICOM heritage.
I am satisfied that the matter is now being taken more seriously than it was before. But it is so important to Trinidad and Tobago, where we are constantly looking for market space and protecting our home market, because we view the CARICOM as our home market. And being the major manufacturing and exporting country in CARICOM, we could not sit idly by and allow the single market vision to disappear. It is in Trinidad and Tobago's interest more than any other, and the interest of the regional entities that we do work on that, and we decided to get it back on the agenda and try to work towards getting something done. The most important thing that we are seeing is the ease of doing business within the region, the harmonization of a number of disparate entities that we have now operating, the potential for the creation of a one market, at least in one part of the region if it comes to that.
The CSME allows for the free movement of goods, skills, labor and across the 15-member regional integration grouping, and Rowley says he was hopeful at the end of the two-day special summit that decisions would be taken to make steps forward.
The key to it, if we are going to have an operating market that is a single market in the economy, it begs the follow-up of investment, registration of companies being all centralized and not duplicated in smaller entities, and of course the burning issue of the movement of people to the places where they're required. So that is probably going to be the most important thing that we can decide on. How do we move people to where they're needed to bring about growth in the region? And Trinidad and Tobago relies very heavily on the health, strength and growth of this market.
And Guyana says it is in full support of the CSME that allows for the free movement of goods, skills, labor and services across the majority of the 15-member regional integration movement. Foreign Affairs Minister Carl Greenidge said that he strongly believes the outstanding issues in relation to the CSME are solvable.
We believe that the project, the CSME, is something that can improve the well-being and welfare of all Caribbean people. And sometimes too much attention is paid to minor issues that cause us to lose our sense of direction. The purpose of the exercise is to create a single market and economy from amongst a significant number of small states, and in those circumstances, market size, institutional arrangements, duplication, red tape, inadequate capacity are constraints that small states face. capacities that can be much enhanced if they can work together.
Still in Guyana, Foreign Minister Carl Greenwich dismisses a motion of no confidence filed against the David Granger administration as nothing more than a diversion aimed at undermining the measures contained in the 2019 budget presented to the National Assembly. Greenwich, who spoke with CMC News on the sidelines of the two-day CARICOM Special Summit, said the motion filed by opposition leader Barrett Jagdeo was bound to fail despite the coalition administration's one-seat majority in the 65-member legislative chamber.
The leader of the opposition is laying this motion almost as a diversion for the public. We are in the process of looking at the budget of 2019. If an opposition is able to, if you like, oppose the passage of a budget, a major financial paper, it has the same impact as a no confidence vote. In other words, a government falls if you can't pass the budget measure. Why would you, when a budget is on the table, a financial paper is on the table, be seeking to lay a no confidence motion? It is simply a game, an attempt to find diversion at a time when he feels the public's attention is caught up on something that he doesn't find convenient.
Still to come in Caribbean Newsline, a 10th oil discovery for Guyana. The details of that story and more when we return.
This is not any regular festival where you just come to hear music. This is a diverse festival, the one and only of its kind, where we have music on display, we have our food, but we have so much of our culture. And right now, we also have some arts and crafts on display, and we're here with the Dominica Arts and Crafts Producers Association, DACPA, naturally Dominican. Good night, tell us your name and tell us what you have on display for people to purchase.
Physically strong and sturdy, spiritually balanced, we clean and purge me. Mentally advanced, we always urge me to read couple books and challenge the clergy. Plenty turn to drought. Life is full of ups and downs. The carousel. That's when the side money run. No little shop can get broke in the slum. All who perpetrate have to buck up and run. No man do more than them share of kegs. One voice attack just like Simon says.
ExxonMobil on Monday announced its 10th discovery offshore Guyana and increased its estimate of the discovered recoverable resource for the Stabroek block to more than 5 billion oil equivalent barrels. We get more in this report from HGP Nightly News.
ExxonMobil is very excited to have its 10th discovery offshore Guyana, the Pluma 1 well. Speaking to reporters on Monday, ExxonMobil's country manager, Rod Henson, said that the well encountered about 121 feet of hydrocarbon-bearing sandstone.
This well is about 17 miles south of the Turbo discovery.
The discovery, Henson related, adds to the potential that will help Guyanese investors to have the confidence to make capital investments.
To take some risks so that they can take advantage of these opportunities. If you have just one project and one small amount of work, you may not feel confident to make some investments to take full advantage.
The discovery is expected to increase value to the country. Henson was also questioned on the costs of production per barrel that ExxonMobil was using.
Well, these investments are multi-decade investments. So we evaluate our opportunities over a full range of prices, because over the next 20 to 30 years, the price of crude is going to change quite a bit. So we evaluate over, we perform multiple sensitivities on cost and price.
The latest discovery now increases the estimated recoverable resource for the Stabroek Block to more than 5 billion oil equivalent barrels. The previous recoverable resource estimate on the Stabroek Block was more than 4 billion barrels. Director, Department of Energy, Dr. Mark Bino, was quoted as saying that the discovery reinforces the potential of the country being able to produce more than 750,000 barrels of oil daily by 2025, and the potential for development in the southeast section of the Stabroek Block.
Premier of the British Virgin Islands, Dr. Orlando Smith, says the territory will approach international partners in the financial services sector to back the United Kingdom when it leaves the European Union. In a statement on Monday, Smith said he will be leveraging the BVI's strong relationship with markets such as Asia and Africa. Britain's exit from the EU is among the things Smith will discuss during a joint ministerial council with the other leaders of UK overseas territories this week. The group is slated to discuss what Brexit means for territories in the areas of international trade, the environment, development funding, and EU exit legislation. He also noted that his main focus in these joint ministerial meetings is to promote the role of the BVI in a post-Brexit world and to protect the rights of BVI residents as it relates to the territory's constitutional relationship with the United Kingdom. The United Nations is making an appeal for Jamaica to share information on the number of children behind bars. The island failed to provide data for the United Nations Global Study on Children deprived of their liberty. Manfred Nowak, independent expert leading the study, made the disclosure stating that a questionnaire was sent to every Caribbean island requesting information on the number of children in prisons as well as the number of children in migration-related detention centers. We get more in this TVJ News report.
How many kids are in prisons? How many are in migration-related detention centers, in institutions, etc.? And the date was on the 1st of September to get back to responses. Unfortunately, in the Caribbean region, we only got one state response from Antigua, but not from Jamaica and all the other Caribbean states.
TVJ News caught up with Mr. Nowak at a conference hosted by the International Society for the Prevention of Child Abuse and Neglect. He's making another appeal for the information to be provided.
The ideal would be to select a snapshot date. So let's say the 10th of December, that the Minister of Justice instructs, for instance, all the heads of correctional institutions and then asks, can you please count how many boys, how many girls, which age groups are the citizens or non-citizens? And the Minister of Interior could instruct the heads of police offices or police detention centers, again with the same question.
Mr. Nowak adds that experience shows that children in closed institutions get in conflict with the law later. He commended Jamaica for passing the child diversion bill and pointed to other alternatives to detaining children.
One should divert children. If they have committed petty crimes, they should not be imprisoned for that, also not while they are waiting trial. There are other ways and means like foster families, small places, institutions where they could be, to reintegrate them with the families if they are children that were running away from home.
And ahead in Newsline Sport, Rothman Powell has been named as the surprise choice to lead West Indies in their ODI series against Bangladesh. Stay with us. Sport is next.
On Coalition Corner, standing up for human rights.
We're not going to get there if we don't start looking at stigma and discrimination and providing legal ways of persons getting redress when they face stigma and discrimination.
Should government take the lead?
As we speak about our creating an enabling environment, it has to be government-driven.
There are persons who need to access care, who need to be nurtured in care, they need to be welcomed in care.
Don't miss the next Coalition Corner.
So here we are at Lowry Air Force Base in Denver, Colorado, a former fully functioning U.S. Air Force base. Now Buckley is its big brother next door, which is still a fully functioning base. So here is one of the most famous airplanes of all time, or aircraft. It's the B-1 bomber. It was a big deal in the 70s, a bigger deal in the 80s, and really a staple of the U.S. Air Force for a long, long time. You just saw the one way in and the one way out of a B-1. Now,
And you have on your website, you have a lot of information. Would you mind giving our audience that website so they can get information on injuries that are caused by lawnmowers?
One of the websites is ridinglawnmowerinjury.com, and another website is mowerlawyer.com.
We have the case that we're going to be talking about today concerns your client, Ethan.
Yes.
On this special Christmas edition of Caribbean Passport, we take in the sights and sounds of Believe, the Christmas edition. Stay tuned for it all right here on this station.
Rovman Powell has been named as the surprise choice to lead West Indies in their three-match one-day international series against Bangladesh, with T20 skipper Carlos Brathwaite returning to the 15-man squad for the first time in 8 months, but oddly ignored, that is, for the captaincy. The 25-year-old Powell is new to the role of captain and oversees the squad in a continued absence of regular skipper Jason Holder, who is still recovering from the injury which put him out of the recent Test series. Left-hander Darren Bravo has been recalled for the first time in 2 years since his controversial banishment from international cricket, while Roston Chase has also found his way back 18 months after a failed start to his ODI campaign. Brathwaite, meanwhile, who has led the T20 squad for the last 2 years, has forced his way back into the ODI squad after last appearing during the ICC World Cup qualifiers in Zimbabwe in March. Chief Selector Courtney Brown made no reference to the absence of Russell, Lewis or Narayan, all of whom missed the recent India tour. While Russell and Narayan were injured, Lewis pulled out for personal reasons. However, all three played in the recent T10 League in Sharjah last week. There is also no place either for left-hander Nicholas Puran, who averaged 48 for Trinidad and Tobago Red Force in the recent Super 50 and struck 3 half-centuries. West Indies face Bangladesh in the opening ODI on Sunday in Dakar. Staying with cricket, all-rounder Imran Khan will lead a 13-man squad for the T&T Red Force in their opening clash against Windward Islands Volcanoes in the regional 4-day championship on December 13. The experienced Khan was the only player who stood out in the last year's edition of the tournament. The Trinidadian has 92 first-class matches added to his career. One of the few TT bowlers to register over 25 wickets last season, with fellow all-rounder Yannick Carey named as his deputy. The Red Force has brought back familiar faces from the last edition of the tournament, with the likes of batsman Kyle Hope, youth keeper Amir Jangu, as well as promising player like Brian Charles and Jeremy Solanzo. Noticeably absent is West Indies wicketkeeper, batsman and former captain Denish Ramdin. The match bowls off at the Brian Lara Cricket Academy in Tarouba in Trinidad and Tobago. And on to boxing now. Guyana gets the nod to host the Caribbean Boxing Championships, which will be the best of Guyana, Barbados and Trinidad and Tobago among 11 countries participating. Roston Drakes of Capital News tells us more.
Countries will grace the shores for the Caribbean Boxing Championship, which commenced on December 6 at the Kefanson Sports Hall. President of the Guyana Amateur Boxing Board of Control, Steve Ninval, said the championships were supposed to be held in Grenada this year, but due to the fact that they were unable to host the event, Guyana seized the opportunity.
We've received a lot of support from the National Sports Commission and from the Guyana Olympic Association. Those are the two entities that have been on board with us for years, and they've stepped back with us again, so we'd want to say thanks. The boxers who will be participating and representing Guyana are those who would have done well in the last National Open, Terence Alley National Open. Of course, there's a little hitch. We would not be seeing Kevin Allicock, who is one of our brightest prospects. He injured his right hand during the Terence Alley National Open, and he's been advised by the doctors to rest for 3 weeks. That does not say we will not have other bright prospects on show. There is Desmond Amsterdam, who's a Caribbean gold medalist. There is Colin Lewis, who's another Caribbean gold medalist. And we now have someone who's been named the Beast from Berbice. That is Jamal Eastman. he'll be competing in the lightweight division.
He said Guyana's charge will be led by Colin Lewis and Desmond Amsterdam.
French Guiana has a large team. Trinidad is coming with a contingent of 38, followed by Barbados with 15. French Guiana, I think, has 14. French Guiana's team also includes one Brazilian because they are actually living in French Guiana right now, someone from Dominican Republic, and someone from Haiti. So the level of competition that we'll be seeing at this Caribbean Championship would be that is very high.
And that's the sport. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Come and experience exceptional fun. Meet amazing people. Enjoy fantastic food and rock the nights away to world-class music at the 23rd Annual St. Kitts Music Festival. 3 nights of musical entertainment from the 27th to the 29th of June 2019. Book now and save the date. For more information, log on to stkittsmusicfestival.net. St. Kitts Music Festival, an experience like no other.
So, what does the president want, Ambassador? What does President Trump? What is his end game?
Well, I don't know what in the world of everything what he wants. I do know that he wants to appoint good judges. And
I'm talking about in terms of the Mueller investigation. Let's stay here. What is he actually? What is the outcome that he's seeking? Because listen, he wasted no time letting Sessions go. I'm sure that letter was sitting in his desk for the last 6 months.
Again, the major developments of this day, regional leaders meet to discuss ways to improve the CSME. And in sport, Rovman Powell named skipper for the West Indies in their ODI series against Bangladesh as Darren Bravo returns. That's Caribbean Newsline. For news and sport around the clock, subscribe to CarnaNews.com. For more of our programming, log on to caribvision.tv and check us out on our YouTube channel. We'll be back here again tomorrow. But from all of us at CMC News, thank you for watching and do have yourselves a good night.